Hi, my name's Paul Grogan, and in this video I'm going to be teaching you how to play Unconscious Mind. In the early 1900s, the Austrian neurologist Sigmund Freud established a revolutionary theory called psychoanalysis, the study of the unconscious mind. Supporters of Freud's work met at his apartment every Wednesday to discuss psychology and the symbolism of dreams. As a member of this group, you will be formulating new techniques, growing your clientele, and trying to become Freud's most distinguished contemporary. You'll need to discuss ideas with your peers, compile notes, and publish theories. You will travel around the city of Vienna, trying to find inspiration and treating your clients in your office. And to keep yourself going, you'll need some coffee. Lots of coffee. A big thank you to Fantasia Games for sponsoring this video, but I also rely on the financial support of my Patreon campaign to keep the channel going. So if you want to support me directly, you can do so at patreon.com/gamingrules. In this video, I'll be using the components from the standard version of the game. If you have the deluxe version or any add-ons, you will have some different components. Place the city map board in the middle of the playing area. Sort the 24 district tokens by colour and set aside the 3 with the reputation icon on them. Stack each set of tokens on their corresponding spaces in the middle of the city map. Then place the set aside tokens on top of their matching stacks with their reputation side showing. Place Freud's reputation marker on the first space of the reputation track. Take the location goal tiles and put aside the one with the grey square in the top left corner. From the 6 remaining, randomly select one of them and take note of the location tags in the top left. Place the Freud figure onto the matching city map location. Then place all 7 locations face up nearby. Place the meeting table board in the playing area. When playing with fewer than 4 players, you need to reduce the number of idea spaces on the meeting table as follows. In a 3-player game, place idea pieces from the player colour not being used on the corner spaces. And in a 2-player game, place ideas from the players not in the game on all of the leftmost and rightmost spaces. Take the notebook tiles and separate them by type. Level 1 tiles, level 2 tiles, and the green, red and purple starting tiles. In a 4-player game, remove 6 of the level 1 and level 2 tiles at random and place them in the box. You only need 18 of each. In a 3-player game, remove 9 tiles of each level. You only need 15 of each. And in a 2-player game, remove 12 tiles of each level. You only need 12 of each. Shuffle the level 1 tiles and place them in a stack on the meeting table here. Make sure that all of the tiles are showing this side up, without the banner on the right side. Do the same with the level 2 tiles. Place the top tile of each stack onto the rightmost space, flipped over to the other side so that they show the banner on the right side of the tile. Then place the next tile from the stack onto the middle space, also flipped over. Separate the clients into 2 decks, routine clients and case study clients. Shuffle the routine clients and place them face down nearby as a deck. Draw the top 2 cards and place them face up to the right of the deck. Do the same with the case study clients, making a deck and then revealing the top 2 cards. Take the grief layers and set aside the 5 starting ones, which are the ones that contain the mortarboard icon in the top right. Shuffle the rest of the layers and place them into the dispenser box, and place the box to the left of the client decks. Then draw and place 1 grief layer on top of each of the 4 clients in the display. Just a quick note about the grief layer cards. Each one of them comes with a protective film on the top. Carefully remove this cover before your first game so that the colours show better. Take the latent dream cards, shuffle them and place them face down as a deck near to the client display. Do the same with the manifest dreams, creating a deck and placing it face down to the right of the latent dream deck. Then reveal the top 4 manifest dreams and place them face up to the right of the deck. Take the research cards, shuffle them to form a deck and place it face down nearby. Reveal the top 2 cards and place them face up next to the deck. Take the treatise tiles and place them in 3 stacks according to their size. To save space, arrange the tiles so that only the colours and icons at the bottom are visible. The order in which you stack them doesn't matter. Place the bright idea tokens in a supply nearby. The large tokens represent 5 bright ideas. Each player chooses a colour and takes the following components in that colour: a player board, an office board, a professor figure, an ink pot, a scoring marker, a reputation marker, 2 therapy markers, 6 ideas and 6 insights. Each player also takes 1 insight dial, 1 heart-shaped box marker, a coffee marker and 7 common insights. Place your player board and insight dial in front of you. Place your ink pot on this space of your player board. Place your heart-shaped box on the 0 space of this track, and place your coffee marker on the 4 space of the coffee track. Place 3 of your ideas in the designated spaces here, and place your other 3 ideas in the bottom left of your board. Place your 6 coloured insights in the designated spaces here. Place your 7 common insights in the centre of your dial. Each player places their scoring marker on the starting space of the victory point track, with the side marked 100 plus face down. The player who most recently made a Freudian slip becomes the start player. They take the starting player token and place it in front of them, Freud side up. Stack the reputation markers on the start space of the reputation track. The starting player's marker should be on top of the stack, followed by the rest of the players in clockwise order. The second player begins the game with 1 additional coffee. The third player gains 1 bright idea, and the fourth player gains 1 coffee and 1 bright idea. Place your office board in front of you. Shuffle the office room cards and give each player 1 at random. Place your card in the rightmost space below your office board. Ensure that it is showing the side with the symbol. This is your secondary office room and is currently blocked by this card. From the routine client deck, reveal a number of cards equal to 1 more than the number of players. So in a 4-player game, you reveal 5 cards. Take the starting grief layers that you set aside earlier and place 1 at random on top of each client. Return any remaining starting grief layers to the box. Beginning with the player to the right of the starting player and then going counterclockwise, each player does the following. Take 1 of the routine client cards along with the starting grief layer and place them into your primary office room. Draw a latent dream card from the deck and place it face up above your primary office. Next, either take a manifest dream from the display or draw 1 from the top of the manifest dream deck. If you choose a card from the display, replace it with the top card from the deck. Then place your chosen card on top of the latent dream, ensuring that the icons at the bottom of the latent dream are still visible. Add up the therapy points on both your client and their grief layer, represented by the green hearts, in this case 6, and place 1 of your therapy markers onto the track above your client in that position. If you place your marker on the 6th space, immediately score 1 victory point, moving your scoring marker 1 space forward. Clients that require more therapy points are harder to treat, which is why you gain a point if you start with 1 that has 6 therapy points. Later in the game, you might take on clients who require 7 or even 8 therapy points. Those are even harder to cure, but are more valuable. Place your other therapy marker onto the 0 space in your secondary office. After all players have taken their starting clients, return the grief layer from the remaining client to the game box and place the client at the bottom of the routine client deck. Take the starting notebook tiles and separate them based on the letter in the top left. Each player takes the 3 tiles that have the same letter as their office room card. Ensure that the tiles are showing the side with the banner on the right. Then flip your office room card to the other side. Beginning with the starting player and proceeding clockwise, each player does the following. Choose 1 of your starting notebook tiles to keep, returning the other 2 to the box. Look at the location icon on the right side of your chosen tile. Place your professor onto the main board in the location that matches the icon. Then, for each of the insight icons on the tile, move a common insight from the centre of your dial into the matching area. Flip your starting notebook tile and place it into one of the leftmost notebook spaces on your player board. Although you are free to choose any space, it is a good idea to place the tile in the space next to the matching symbol. Each player takes 1 of each of the reference cards. 1 contains all of the iconography in the game, and the other has a list of the routine clients on one side and the case study clients on the other. And with setup complete, you're now ready to play. The game is played over a series of rounds. In each round, the starting player takes their turn, followed by the other players in clockwise order. On your turn, you have 3 options. You can either state your ideas, or you could recall your ideas, or you can treat your clients. After resolving your chosen option, you may use any heart-shaped boxes to produce therapy points for your clients. And finally, if you have any vacant office rooms, you must take on new clients. Play continues until Freud's reputation marker moves to this space. When this happens, complete the current round and then play 1 final round. And after final scoring, the player with the most victory points claims the title of Freud's most distinguished contemporary and wins the game. Before diving into the rest of the rules, I wanted to take some time to talk about some important concepts, including your insights. Your insight dial tracks how many insights you have divided into 3 qualities: growth, freedom, and passion. and each insight has a level identified by a shape, minor, median or major. This insight, for example, is a major growth insight. Insights in the reserve do not have a quality or level. You start the game with 7 common insights, 3 in your reserve and the other 4 on the spaces defined by your starting notebook tile. You can gain more insights of your own colour during the game by unlocking them from your player board. When you unlock one, move it into the reserve on your dial. Certain effects in the game allow you to generate an insight. This tile, for example, allows you to spend 1 coffee to generate 2 freedom insights, 1 median and 1 minor. To generate insights, move them from your reserve onto the corresponding spaces. If you ever generate an insight but don't have any in your reserve, you may choose to remove an insight from anywhere on your dial and use that instead. Some effects allow you to elevate an insight. To do this, move an insight 1 ring outward from either minor to median or from median to major. A really important rule is that you cannot elevate an insight from your reserve. You can only elevate an insight already in one of the rings. Other effects allow you to suppress an insight. To do this, move an insight 1 ring toward the centre, either from major to median, from median to minor, or even from minor back to your reserve. And there are also effects which allow you to transfer an insight. To do this, move an insight to an adjacent coloured section without changing the level of it. Many actions and effects require you to spend specific insights. To resolve the effects of this dream card, for example, you must spend 1 major passion, 1 median freedom, and 1 minor freedom. To spend an insight, move it from its current area to your reserve. And you may always use an insight of a higher level than is required, but you don't get any change for doing so. Sometimes an effect will just show the shape of an insight without any symbol inside. In this case, the icon refers to the level of the insight only, no matter what its quality. For example, as depicted on your office board, one thing that you can do at any time on your turn is to spend 1 major, 1 median and 1 minor insight to gain a heart-shaped box. And because those shapes have no colour, you can use insights of any quality. The next thing I want to talk about is your reputation, as this is an important part of the game. The reputation track on the city board records the level of each player's reputation, and also Freud himself. Each time your reputation marker moves forward, so does Freud's. And when Freud reaches the pocket watch at the end of the track, the end of the game is triggered. This icon represents gaining a reputation. When you do, first advance Freud's marker, and then move your own marker 1 space forward, placing it on top of any other markers already there. Each time a marker, either yours or Freud's, crosses this icon on the reputation track, Freud takes a walk to the next location on the city map. So if you gain a reputation and both yours and Freud's marker crosses an icon, then Freud goes for a walk twice. This icon triggers the reputation track. When you do this, you first score the points and/or coffee shown in the zone above your reputation marker. Here you gain 3 points and 1 coffee. Then look at the section below Freud's marker and perform one of the actions from those shown. Or, if you prefer, you could choose an action in a section to the left of Freud's marker. It's important to understand the difference between gaining reputation and triggering the reputation track. When you gain reputation, you just move your marker and Freud's, but you don't get any bonuses for doing so. However, when you trigger the reputation track, you don't move any markers, but you get the bonuses above and below the track based on the position of your marker and of Freud's. Next up, heart-shaped boxes. These are useful for curing your clients. I mentioned earlier that on your turn you may use your insights to gain heart-shaped boxes, but you are limited to 3. You can at any time spend a heart-shaped box to gain 2 points. So if you already had 3 and would gain another, quickly spend one for 2 points and then gain the new one. Coffee will help manage your insights and perform various actions. When you spend or gain coffee, adjust your marker accordingly on your coffee track. You are limited to a maximum of 6 coffee. As well as using coffee to perform various actions in the game, you may also use it as indicated in the bottom left of your player board. Whenever you would suppress an insight, you may instead use 1 coffee. You can also use 2 coffees at any time on your turn to elevate or transfer an insight. And when I say at any time on your turn, I mean it. You can even do this in the middle of resolving another effect. You can also use 3 coffees at any time on your turn to gain 1 bright idea. And speaking of bright ideas, these are the last things that I want to mention before we dive into the rules. Bright ideas have a few different uses, which I'll explain throughout the video. Whenever you gain one, take it from the general supply and put it in front of you. There's no limit to the number of bright ideas that you can have. At the end of the game, you gain 1 point for each bright idea you still have. As mentioned earlier, on your turn you can choose one of 3 options. The first one I want to explain is state ideas. To do this, take 1 or 2 ideas from your idea supply and place them onto an empty idea space on the meeting table. When placing an idea, you must point the tails of the idea at the action that you want to perform. If you placed 1 idea, you'll get to perform the action once. If you placed 2 ideas, you'll get to perform the action twice. And it is not allowed to point the tails towards an action that is already being pointed to by your other ideas. For example, in this situation, you may place an idea here, but you cannot point it towards this action space as you have already got another idea pointing to it. But you can point it to this one even though the yellow player is pointing at it. You may also substitute each idea with one of your bright ideas. These work in a similar way, but at the end of your turn, any bright ideas are removed and put back in the main supply, whereas your ideas stay on the meeting table. For example, if you wanted to perform this action twice, you could place 2 ideas, 1 idea and a bright idea, or 2 bright ideas. Next, perform the action that you have just pointed to. If you used 1 idea, you get to perform the action once. If you used 2 ideas, you get to perform the action twice, fully resolving the first action before then performing the second. I'll explain the actions later in the video, but after resolving your actions, you must advance your ink pot. The number of spaces that you advance your ink pot is determined by the row where you placed your ideas this turn. 1 space if you placed your ideas in the top row, 2 spaces if you placed your ideas in the next row, and so on. You must then move your ink pot exactly that number of spaces clockwise along the path on the left side of your player board. Note that the number of spaces you move is the same whether you placed 1 or 2 ideas. As depicted here, you may use bright ideas to modify your ink pot's movement. 1 space more or 1 space fewer for each bright idea you use. However, you may not reduce the movement to 0. That is, you must advance your ink pot at least 1 space. You then may perform the effect shown where your ink pot ends its movement. If your ink pot ends on one of these 3 spaces, you may generate the insight shown here and resolve the effects of every notebook tile in the row, and you can do all of those things in any order. And if the insight space has been unlocked, you get the effect shown on that space too. For example, you move your ink pot to the bottom space, allowing you to trigger the bottom row in any order. First, you generate a minor passion insight. Then you resolve the rightmost tile, suppressing an insight to generate a median insight of any quality. You then resolve the leftmost tile and use the insight that you just acquired to gain a heart-shaped box. If your ink pot ends on this space, you gain the benefits of the reputation track as mentioned earlier, gaining points and coffee as indicated in the zone above your reputation marker, and then an action from the zone below Freud's marker or any zone to its left. If your ink pot ends on this space, choose a column that does not have an idea above it. Then you may resolve the effect of every notebook tile in that column. If you chose a column which has an insight removed from the bottom space, you resolve that generate effect too. And again, you can resolve these effects in any order. And if you're wondering how you remove an idea from the top of a column, well, that's what this icon is. When your ink pot moves past this icon, remove the leftmost idea from the top of your player board and place it into your idea supply. Note that this is not a space. Your ink pot doesn't stop on it, it just moves through it. Now that I've covered what happens when you choose to state ideas, I'm now going to explain the various actions available to you on the meeting table. These 2 actions are related to your insights. This one allows you to generate 1 minor insight of each quality. So you move 3 insights from your reserve onto the first ring of each quality. And this action allows you to perform up to 2 elevations and 1 transfer in any order. And remember that when you elevate an insight, you can only increase the level of an insight which is already minor or median. You cannot elevate an insight from your reserve. These 3 action spaces all allow you to gain a notebook tile using coffee. This one is to use 1 coffee to gain either of the notebook tiles from the leftmost column, that is, the ones on top of the stacks. This action is to use 2 coffees to gain either of the notebook tiles from the center column, and when you take a tile from this column, you also trigger the tile's banner effect shown on the right side of the tile. And this action is to use 3 coffees to gain either of the 2 notebook tiles in the rightmost column. You get the tile's banner effect and the tile's main effect in any order. After paying the coffee and possibly resolving the tile's effect, you then choose a row on your player board and place the tile into the leftmost empty space of that row. Ensure that the tile is placed so that it is not showing the side with the banner. Note that the rightmost space of each row depicts this icon. This indicates an additional requirement to place a tile on that space. The first time you cover one of these icons, there are no additional requirements, but to cover the second of these icons, you must have already cured one client. And to place a tile covering the third of these icons, which would be your 9th tile, you must have cured 2 clients. Then replenish the tile offer. If you took a tile from the middle column, fill it with the topmost tile from that row stack, banner side up. If you took a tile from the rightmost column, slide the centre tile of the same row to the right and then fill the middle column with a new tile. Remember that if you're performing this action twice, you fully resolve the first action before doing it again. Therefore, you will take a tile and refill the space before taking your next tile. As soon as you complete a row of your player board with notebook tiles, move the insight from the end of that row to the reserve of your dial. This unlocks the effect of that space, which you may use during future Inkpot activations. And as soon as you complete a column on your player board, you unlock it. Move the insight from the bottom of the column to your reserve. You now have access to the effect of that space whenever you activate that column when moving your Inkpot. As depicted here, when you have placed your 9th notebook tile in your player board, you gain a reputation point. If you ever take a notebook tile but are unable to place it because you have no empty spaces that you can legally place it in, you may replace any tile in your player board with the new one, discarding the replaced tile. Or you could just discard the new tile. Later in the game, it could happen that some of the spaces above the meeting table are empty. If you would take a tile from an empty space, gain the points printed on that space instead of the tile. These two actions are related to research cards. This action is simply to gain a research card. To do this, draw the topmost card from the research deck and add it to your hand. Then, if you want to, you may swap any one research card from your hand with either of the 2 face-up research cards in the display. This action allows you to either play 1 or 2 research cards or to publish a treatise. When you play a research card from your hand, place it face-up in front of you. The card is now considered in play. Then trigger any effect shown at the bottom of the card. This one generates 2 minor freedom insights. Once played, any location tags on research cards are added to your overall count of tags, which will become clear later on. The other option of this action is to publish a treatise. To do this, you must have at least one of your coloured insights on your dial. This means that you cannot perform this action until you have unlocked one of your coloured insights from your player board. First, choose a treatise from the display that you want to publish. Remember, all of these are available, not just the ones on top. Let's say you want to publish the future of an illusion. You must first set aside one of your played research cards that matches the colour of the treatise's leftmost volume, indicated by this icon. Next, you must gather the exact number and colours of the remaining volumes indicated on the treatise. Here you need another purple volume and a green one. These additional cards can come from other research cards that you've previously played, or they can be gathered from other previously published treatises by citing another player's work. I'll come back to citing other works later on, but for now, let's go over what happens once you've gathered all the required volumes. Arrange and overlap the research cards in the order indicated on the treatise, and place the tile over them so that the volume colours line up. Remove one of your coloured insights from your dial and place it onto the designated space in the upper left of the tile to mark the treatise as yours. Then score the number of points shown in the middle of the tile. After you publish a treatise, you can now count the location tags shown on the tile as your own, which will be useful later on. Okay, let's now go back to citing another player's previously published treatise to gather the volumes you might need. To cite a volume from another player's treatise, take the rightmost research card and add it to the ones that you're collecting. As shown here, for each volume that you cite, the player who originally published the treatise gains 1 bright idea and scores 2 points. You may cite more than one volume from the same treatise, but you must start with the rightmost one and move inward. You cannot leave any gaps. And you can cite from multiple treatises too if needed. For example, you want to publish the treatise The Interpretation of Dreams. It requires 4 volumes, 2 green, 1 purple and 1 red. The first volume, green, must come from your own previously played research cards. You also need a red volume, but you don't have one of your own. Thankfully, another player has previously published a treatise which has a red volume as its rightmost one, so you can cite that. For doing this, the pink player gains 2 points and a bright idea. The other 2 volumes you need are green and purple, and here you have a few options. You actually have these volumes yourself, so you could just use those. However, doing so will mean that those volumes are removed from your play area and you will lose the tags on them. Instead, you decide to cite from the yellow player's previously published work, taking both of the volumes, granting the yellow player 4 points and 2 bright ideas. And note that you could have just cited the purple volume from yellow and used your own green one. That would have been okay. However, you could not have just cited the green volume and used your own purple, because when taking volumes from another published work, they have to be taken from right to left. You then arrange the volumes, place the treatise over them, and place one of your coloured insights from your dial onto the tile. You score 12 points, and now you have access to these 2 location tags. The final 2 action spaces to explain allow you to move figures around the city. Before explaining them though, let me just explain a little bit about the city of Vienna itself. The city is divided into 3 districts, with 2 locations within each district, identified by a unique tag. The theatre and the library in the green district, the opera and the museum in the purple district, and the university and the cafe in the red district. Each location has a space that may hold any number of figures, and associated with each space are the 3 possible location effects, which apply when you move to that location. Each location also has 3 bonus slots, and each district has 4 bonus slots. These will be explained more when I talk about recalling your ideas later in the video. This action allows you to advance your professor 1 or 2 locations clockwise around the city, or move your professor to the same location as Freud. Note that if you choose the second of these options, your professor must start in a different location than Freud. This action allows you to advance Freud 1 to 3 locations clockwise. Your own professor does not move. Whether you move your professor or you move Freud, you may then resolve the effect of the location where the figure ends its movement, up to a maximum of 5 times. You have 2 options to determine how many times you can resolve the effect. You can either count the total number of figures in that location, here it would be 3, or you can count the number of location tags that you have in play that match the location. Here you have 2 tags that match the location you move to, the cafe. And as depicted here, you may spend bright ideas to resolve the effects 2 additional times for each bright idea spent. The maximum number of times that you can resolve the effect is 5, no matter how many professors, tags or bright ideas you have. As mentioned earlier, each location has 3 possible effects and you can resolve any of them as many times as you want to, up to the limit of how many effects you are resolving. For example, if you are resolving 3 effects, you could do this one 3 times, or this one once and this one twice, and so on. During the game, you may come across this icon, which allows you to resolve a particular tag's location effects. This one activates the cafe. This is resolved in the same way as if your professor or Freud had moved to the location. However, you must choose the counting tags option to determine how many times you resolve the effect. And you can count the 1 tag shown on the icon that triggered the effect, plus any matching tags that you have in play, and you can use bright ideas if you want to. Another option you have on your turn, instead of placing ideas and performing actions, is to recall your ideas. You may choose to do this as long as you have at least 1 idea on the meeting table. You do not need to wait until you have no more ideas to place. First, count the number of different spaces on the meeting table where you have at least 1 idea. You then gain that amount of coffee. Next, remove all of your ideas from the meeting table and place them back in your idea supply. The next step is to choose either the location with your professor or the location with Freud. You then have 2 options: claim a location bonus or claim a district bonus. If you claim a location bonus, choose an empty bonus slot of that location and gain the effect of that slot. Then move the topmost token from your chosen district and place it onto the slot that you chose. If you place the token with the reputation icon, you also gain 1 reputation. In other words, the first player to claim a bonus in each district gains 1 reputation, since in setup you place the token with that bonus on top of each stack. Alternatively, instead of claiming a location bonus, you can claim a district bonus. To do this, you must have one of your coloured insights somewhere on your dial. Remove that insight and set it aside. count the number of location tags that you have that match the colour of the chosen district. Here you would count both the museum and the opera tags, of which you have 5. You then choose an empty slot with a number equal to or lower than the number of tags you have, and place your set aside insight onto the number. Then resolve the effect of that slot. Here you gain 2 heart-shaped boxes and advance your ink pot 1, 2 or 3 spaces, triggering those effects as usual. Then move the topmost token from this district onto the slot. And again, if that token depicts the reputation icon, you gain 1 reputation. Note that once a district is out of tokens, you cannot claim any bonuses from that district or its locations. The third option you have on your turn is to treat your clients, which is, after all, the main focus of the game. If you have 2 clients, you may treat either or both of them once each in any order. To treat a client, look at the effect of the topmost dream. You must then spend the depicted insights, moving them back into your reserve on your insight dial. In this case, 1 major passion and 1 minor growth. You don't currently have any minor growth, but you can always use one of a higher level. Then resolve the effect of that dream, which is a number of therapy points, in this case 2, and usually something else, in this case 3 points. For each therapy point, move the therapy marker 1 space to the left. If the marker reaches or passes this icon, immediately resolve Catharsis, which I'll explain in more detail later on. The most important thing though is Catharsis removes the client's grief layer. Then you remove the dream card from the game. If, when applying therapy points, the marker reaches the leftmost space, you have cured the client, which again, I'll explain in more detail later on, but essentially, you score the points shown on the client and remove them from your office, placing them in front of you. Sometimes you will have leftover therapy points. For example, if you resolve this dream and you gained 3 therapy points but only 2 were needed, then for each leftover therapy point, you gain 1 heart-shaped box. I mentioned earlier that some clients are harder to cure but are more valuable. When you took on this client, you would have placed the therapy marker on space number 8 because the client has 8 green hearts. This would score you 3 points immediately. When the marker reaches or passes a space with a victory point icon, immediately score those points. So if the therapy marker was here and you had 2 therapy points, you would move the marker to here and gain 3 points. 2 for passing this space and 1 for reaching this space. Some manifest dreams have an icon in the upper right corner. As depicted in the middle of your office board, if that icon matches the icon on the client's grief layer, then you gain 1 heart-shaped box when you use the effect of that manifest dream to treat the client. I'll explain heart-shaped boxes later, but now it's time to talk about catharsis, which is the process of releasing strong or repressed emotions represented in the game by the client's grief layer. As mentioned earlier, if the marker reaches or passes this icon, you resolve catharsis. To do this, gain the benefit shown in the top left of the grief layer, which, for all of the starting grief layers, is 1 bright idea and 2 cups of coffee. Then, if this was your starting grief layer, note this icon here. This means that when resolving catharsis for this client, you also unlock your second office room. To do this, simply discard the office card. Your second office is now open for business. Then, remove the grief layer from the game. Notice that the client's effects and tags are no longer crossed out. This means that they are now active. And this is something that you need to remember. Even though the client has not yet been fully cured, its ability is active. However, the points printed on the client are not scored yet. They are only gained once the client is cured. And speaking of curing clients, once the marker reaches the leftmost space of the client track, they are cured. You score the points shown on the client's card and then move it from your office room to your play area. Its ability and tags are still active, as they were when you removed the grief layer. Routine clients provide location tags and ongoing effects that change the rules of the game, whereas case study clients provide end-of-game scoring benefits. These are all explained on the player aids. If a client is ever cured and there are still any dream cards above the office room, remove them from the game. At the end of your turn, no matter which option you chose, there are a couple of steps that you need to perform. First, if you have any heart-shaped boxes, you may use them to produce therapy points, 1 point for each box used. As usual, each therapy point allows you to move one of your client's therapy markers 1 space to the left. And this could trigger any effects that normally happen when you gain therapy points from dreams, such as scoring points, reaching catharsis, or curing a client. So, if you were wondering what heart-shaped boxes were for, well, now you know. The last thing that you do on your turn is to take on a new client for each empty office room you have. 2 empty office rooms, 2 new clients. For each new client you take on, choose one of the 4 clients in the display and move it to your vacant room along with its grief layer. Refill the display by drawing a card from the respective deck and placing a random grief layer from the box onto the client. If one of the decks ever runs out, refill with clients from the other deck. Then draw a latent dream from the deck and place it into the space above your new client's room. Next, take one of the manifest dreams from the display and refill it by revealing the next card from the deck. Alternatively, if you don't like any of the cards on display, you can always take one from the top of the deck. Place it on top of the latent dream, being careful not to cover up its icons. So, the latent dream is always taken at random from the deck, but you do get a choice of which manifest dream to take. And you may want to take one that has an icon matching the one on the client's grief layer for that extra bonus that I mentioned earlier. Just like you did in setup, set the therapy marker on the track above the client onto the position based on the number of green hearts on both your client and their grief layer. And again, if there were 6 or more green hearts, gain the points depicted on the space where you place the marker. During setup, 7 location goals were placed nearby. Once you meet the conditions indicated at the bottom of one of these tiles, you must immediately claim it. Gain the reputation point depicted on the tile, and then take the tile, placing it face down in your play area. Once you have claimed a tile, it is yours for the rest of the game. Nobody can take it from you. You now have the location tag shown on the tile, which will help you in other parts of the game. The conditions for claiming each tile are all explained in the rulebook. Once Freud's reputation reaches the space with the pocket watch, the end of the game is close. The player who caused this to happen immediately scores 3 points. Then flip the starting player token over to the other side. You then complete the current round and then play 1 additional round. In that final round, you do not take on any new clients. It's very rare, but it can happen that once the end of the game is triggered, you could gain a reputation when you are already on 9. In this case, do not move your marker, but gain 3 points instead. After that, proceed to final scoring. First, score the number of points shown on your reputation marker's space. Here, blue scores 4, orange and pink score 3, and yellow scores nothing. As shown here, the player whose marker is the farthest ahead on the reputation track scores 2 points for each of their published treatises and 2 points for each client that they have cured. The player whose marker is the second farthest ahead scores 1 point per treatise and 1 point per cured client. If 2 or more players are on the same space, it's the player on the bottom who is considered farther ahead. In this case, pink. Next, count the number of districts where you have at least one of your coloured insights. If you are only in 1 district, score 4 points. If you're in 2 districts, 10 points, and all 3 districts, 18 points. Here, blue is in 2 districts and scores 10 points. Then, count the number of rows on your player board which are full of notebook tiles. As shown here, you score 1 point if you have completed 1 row, 5 points for 2 rows, and 16 points for all 3 rows. Here, blue scores 1 point. Next, as shown here, you score points depending on how many different location tags you have in play. Blue has 4 different tags: library, opera, museum, and cafe, so scores 6 points. As mentioned earlier, any case study clients that you have either cured or just removed their grief layer have an end of game scoring bonus. Score them now. Convert any remaining heart-shaped boxes to 2 points each. Convert any remaining coffee into bright ideas at a ratio of 3:1. Here you gain 1 bright idea. Then you score 1 point for each of your bright ideas. The player with the most victory points wins the game, claiming the title of Freud's most distinguished contemporary. If there's a tie, the tied player with the highest reputation wins. Included in the base game are 3 modules which you can use to add more variety to the game. Each of them can be used independently, or you can combine them. The first one I'm going to talk about is the journalist. This smartly dressed individual moves around the city, increasing your access to districts and locations. During setup, after placing Freud's figure onto the city map, choose one of the remaining 5 location goals at random and place the journalist onto the location matching the tags on the goal. During the game, whenever you gain the ability to move either yourself or Freud, you can choose to move the journalist instead. So the icons found in the base game can be used as follows. This icon allows you to advance the journalist 1 to 2 locations. This one advances the journalist 1 to 3 locations. And this one moves the journalist to the same location as Freud. You then resolve the effects of the location as normal. However, if you choose to count tags to determine the number of effects that you may resolve, you also count the tags on all published treatises, not just your own. So if the blue player moved the journalist to the opera, they would count their own 3 tags and the one on this treatise, even though it was published by another player. Also, whenever you claim a location or district bonus, you may choose the location where the journalist is. And if you claim a district bonus with the journalist, you may add the tags on all published treatises of the district's colour. The second module to explain is the location overlay tiles. For these, you have 3 options. Have all of the tiles showing their coloured side, 2 in each colour, or you can have just 1 tile of each colour chosen at random and the other 3 tiles are flipped to their grey side, or you could flip all of the tiles to their grey side. If you choose the first option, place each tile over the bonus slot of a random location in the matching district. If you choose the second option, place each coloured tile over the bonus slots in a random location in the matching district, and for the grey tiles, randomly place them on the other locations. And for the third option, just randomly place all of the tiles on the 6 locations. Quite simply, the bonuses printed on the overlay tiles replace the ones covered over. The grey side of each tile shows a Treat a Client icon in the middle slot. When you claim this bonus, perform 1 treatment action. In other words, use 1 dream to treat 1 client. Finally, the Fireworks module allows you to claim a district with a discount. During setup, place the fireworks standee next to the bonus slot in the district where Freud is. When you claim a district bonus in a district with the fireworks, you may reduce the number of tags required to claim a bonus by 1. For example, if you are claiming a district bonus in the purple district and have 4 purple tags, you may claim the number 5 space. If you do use the discount, advance the fireworks to the next district clockwise. Note that if the fireworks advance to a district where there are no tokens in that district stack, or if all of the district bonus slots are full, advance the fireworks to the next district. I hope you found this video useful in learning how to play Unconscious Mind. If you want to see a playthrough of the game, click on the little eye in the corner or check out the link in the description of this video. And if you have any questions about the game, please leave them in the comments. And whilst you're there, give the video a like and subscribe to the channel for more content. And as mentioned earlier, I do rely on the support of my Patreon to keep the channel going. So if you are in a position to be able to do so, please visit patreon.com/gaming rules for exclusive access to the Gaming Rules community and some additional bonus content. Until next time, take care and thanks for watching.